Welcome to the Philosophy Podcast, where we discuss various topics of philosophy, science, art, and much more, and where we give you a good mind workout and improve your health and happiness. The Philosophy Podcast, your destination for philosophy. Hello and welcome. I'm your host Everon, and with me today is Joao from the
Yeah.
forum. Hello and good evening to you, Joao.
Hi everyone, how are you?
I'm pretty well, okay. And how are you today?
I'm great, thanks.
That's great to hear. All
Always
right.
good.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's jump into today's topic. We'll be looking at the question, what is philosophy? We've
Yeah.
asked you previously about this and got a large number of responses, of which I would like to read a few now.
Mhm.
All right, so number one, I think it is thinking about thinking. Number
Yeah.
two, don't expect anything and you won't be disappointed. That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
Number three, a set of ideals, standards, or beliefs used to describe behavior and thought. And number four is a little bit longer. The quickest way to answer this question is just to say that philosophy isn't a content, so there will never be a book called Philosophy as Kant Noticed, but rather a way of approaching life. And this way consists in casting doubt on what we think we know. Alright. So, with all of these answers, I'm curious to know what you think philosophy is. What is your definition for philosophy?
Yeah. Well, I think many people might think that this is an easy question to answer and that philosophers and people who are interested in philosophy have a very straightforward answer to this question. But I've seen many different definitions for what philosophy is, and I guess all definitions are debatable. But yeah, the way I see it is, so the first thing we have when we have this experience of reality, whatever reality is just awareness, right? It's consciousness. And within consciousness, we have all these sorts of experiences, we have memories, we have dreams, we have perceptions, and we just want to make sense of whatever this is, right? This is where we start from. And the thing is, to make sense of what this all is, we have to have a framework of truth, right? Because you cannot make sense of your ideas if you are not checking your ideas according to some framework, to some guidelines, right? So what is this framework that we use to check our ideas and we use to practice philosophy? This framework, I would say, stems from basically logic, right? Logic is like the absolute truth. It's the truth we all our minds can agree on, and so when we construct an idea, our ideas and our reasoning for that idea must cohere with those with that framework of truth, because if it doesn't, if it contradicts that framework of truth, or if it doesn't check out according to that framework of truth, then that means that probably our ideas are impossibilities or are wrong or are not truth, right? So, yeah, logic is this reference point for absolute truth. Is the unconditional truth in which we can check for all our ideas and reasonings. So, in a sense, philosophy, if I had to put it in a single sentence, I would say philosophy is kind of the exercise or the study for achieving the maximum coherence in our ideas.
Okay.
It's really what we are trying to do when we do philosophy, is trying to achieve the strongest coherence possible. It's not really philosophy is not going to give you answers about what reality is fundamentally, because those questions have to start with maybe assumptions and things like that. But philosophy can give you a strong framework for checking coherence, and coherence, I think, it's the only thing in the sense we have.
Okay.
And of course, this is very debatable. There are many models for what truth is. There are models that start from this principle that truth is what coheres, but maybe we can leave that to another podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the reason I think philosophy works in a practical sense, I think, is because this exercise of checking for coherence what it does is it reveals the impossibilities in our thinking, and by revealing the impossibilities in our thinking, it
Mm-hmm.
shows how our conclusions may not be reasonable. And so by revealing the impossibilities, our impossible conclusions, what it does is it forces us to get other conclusions, right? It forces us to be creative in 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 getting hypotheses for our problems,
Mm-hmm.
in a coherent way. So in a sense, philosophy allows us to search for hypotheses that make sense in a way.
Okay, yes.
And so far so good.
Yes, so far so good. All right.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, but just let me finish just
okay.
one more thing. And I think that some people might think that philosophy is useless, especially when we have
Hmm.
science.
Mm-hmm.
But I think philosophy is still useful even if we have science, because philosophy keeps science in check, right?
Yeah.
By clarifying what are really the problems that science is trying to resolve, by clarifying our hypotheses. So in a way, I think that philosophy feeds hypothesis to science, or that's one of the way philosophy is useful.
Yes.
And I think that science kind of needs something outside of science, right? To keep
Mm-hmm.
the scientific method in check, because science is already operating within that method. And now, just one other point here for
Mm-hmm.
one thing important for philosophy is that this exercise of checking for coherence, it's only possible to do with spoken language if we are very precise in what we mean, if we are very precise in our
Mm-hmm.
description of the concept, right? Because if our concepts are vaguely described, or if they are ambiguous, we cannot really make this exercise of checking for coherence.
Yeah.
So yeah, the philosophy is also about precision in this sense. So and I think that many people are turned off by philosophy, because when people try to read philosophical texts, and when they try to follow philosophical conversations, I think people are kind of
Mm-hmm.
turned off because they feel like there's philosophy is unnecessarily complicated in a way that describes its processes in the way that it practices itself,
Yeah.
and right, because it seems that philosophers and scholars that practice philosophy use a
Mm-hmm.
very particular kind of language that seems counterintuitive for many people. And but the reason is this is because philosophy, just like other sciences, philosophy requires a specific language, right? Just
Yes.
like mathematics has its language, just like biology has its
Mm-hmm.
language, philosophy also needs its language. And it's a language that scholars in philosophy have been refined throughout the centuries, just to make the philosophical discourse easier, or
Mm-hmm.
to so we don't have to be always clarifying what you mean, what you mean, right? But of course, this doesn't mean that we cannot talk about philosophy in more simple terms. Of course we have, but maybe we have to spend a little more energy by
Mm-hmm.
asking, what do you mean by this, what do you mean by that? So yeah, so to sum up, I think that philosophy is this exercise, or this study to clarify ideas, for checking for coherence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all ultimately driven by, I think, something as trivial as curiosity in our minds, just human curiosity.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I follow you. So that's great. And with all of that, can we look at some of the answers and try to better understand what they say about philosophy?
Yeah,
S-
yeah.
Okay, so first I would look at the answer which says that philosophy is thinking about thinking. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think that philosophy is thinking about thinking, but I don't think that thinking about thinking is always philosophy in a
Yeah.
way. Because definitely philosophy is some sort of thinking, and it is about other sorts of thinking. So yeah, it is thinking about thinking, but I don't think it's a very precise description because it's not really describing what thinking is and what
Mm-hmm.
is the kind of thinking that philosophy does. So I would say that philosophy, yes, it's thinking, but it's a critical thinking. It's a methodic thinking. It's a thinking
Mm-hmm.
that has to follow some guidelines, the guidelines I was just talking before, and yeah, but thinking can also mean like any your dreams, perceptions,
Mm-hmm.
memories, right? Spiritual experiences that can mean thinking. So, yeah, I would say that philosophy, to be more precise, would be something like critical thinking about thinking in general.
Okay. So is there something that is not thinking about thinking, like thinking, for example, about theological questions which don't think
Mm.
about thought but about God?
Yeah, yeah, this is an interesting question, but of course, this is debatable. But I think that thinking about God is still thinking about your own experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about God, it seems to me you are still thinking about concepts, about feelings, about perceptions
Mm-hmm.
that you are necessarily aware of. So, in a sense, I don't think the concept of God lies outside of consciousness, in the sense that you model what God is according to past experiences in your awareness.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if you agree or not, but
Yeah.
this could be
No, I do.
probably an interesting thing to debate in another podcast.
Yes.
So I don't think we can conceptualize God out of nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
God, to me, in a sense, is still a thought process, and that is why I think God is such an ambiguous concept, because it changes a lot from person to person. It depends on the thought processes of each person.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah, I guess it is still thinking about thinking in a sense, because God can be considered a thought if you look at God through this prism.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then let's see about the second answer. So it
Mm.
says, don't expect anything and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah,
So now to me, it sounds like a different usage of the term philosophy. Philosophy
yeah,
more as a
definitely.
mindset or a stance we take towards life. What can we say about that?
Yeah, I mean, um, not expecting anything is a philosophy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not philosophy. Let's say, it's a philosophy. What philosophy means in this sense is it's a model of reality. It's a belief system, let's say, and
Yeah.
that belief system can come from practicing actual philosophy and the study of philosophy, right? You can practice philosophy and then you come up with justified beliefs and you kind of adhere to those beliefs, and that's, I think, what this person is doing. So what this person is doing is
Mm-hmm.
stating in a sense that I believe personally that if you don't expect anything, you won't be disappointed, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, and I kind of I can see it's true. I can see if you don't expect anything, you won't be disappointed. I don't think this is a reasonable thing to say,
Yeah.
because I mean, we could ask if you don't have any expectations, then where does motivation to act come from, right? I would say
Yes.
that the reason we act is to resolve a need, a need in our bodies, a need within ourselves. So naturally, you have at least some expectation that your action will be successful, right? even
Yes.
even even if you are not aware of that you have these expectations, I would say that the expectation is there, otherwise you wouldn't act. but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think it is an healthy mindset to have reasonable expectations. And I mean, reasonable expectations, I mean, like having expectations aligned with the likelihood of the outcomes, right? So
Yes.
if someone expects to be able to fly tomorrow, you could say that most likely that person will end up getting disappointed.
Yes,
But
very
but if
much.
you yeah, but if you expect to be alive tomorrow, I would say that is likely an healthy expectation to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So now about the third answer. It says a set of ideals, standards of beliefs used to describe behavior and thought. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this one. I think it is a concise way to describe what philosophy is. So philosophy, in a way, is I mean, we could say that philosophy, in a way, is a method we use to come up with a theory for human nature, whatever human nature means, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing we use to make sense of what it is to be human and to understand what's our place in this reality. So yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Okay. So again, it sounds to me like the idea of philosophy as a mindset or way of living.
That's
little bit.
another one.
No, the one with the set of ideals, standards, and beliefs.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah,
bit.
definitely.
It has something.
Yeah. Philosophy can definitely be a way of living, a way of making sense of everything. Yeah, but maybe you could read the next question, because I think my
Yes.
answer would link to the next question.
Yes, I think so too. All right, so now our last answer. It is the quickest way to answer this question is just to say that philosophy isn't a content, but rather a way of approaching life, and this way consists in casting doubt on what we think we know. Now,
Yeah.
this one is a little bit more complicated, and again, it sounds like philosophy as a way of living here with emphasis on doubt. What do you say about this?
Yeah. So, I think these last questions, they open for another definition. They open the door for another definition of what philosophy might be. Like the philosophy as a way of being. So far, I've been describing philosophy more like an exercise, or like a study, like some sort of methodical thinking, critical thinking. But I do believe that it is true that also philosophy, it's a way of living,
Yeah.
and it is a way of approaching life, because when you become aware of how much you don't know, of how many possibilities this existence has to offer, you kind of get, at least for me, I have this experience, I kind of get this constant paranoia about my beliefs. Yeah, and I'm always thinking, well, what I might have wrong. Do I have enough reasons to believe what I believe? So this is kind of a sentiment that is always present, right? So yeah, in a sense, philosophy becomes a lifestyle, because you can't avoid but be always checking for the coherence of your ideas, always asking why. You cannot avoid being doubtful of what you think, of what your beliefs are, and actually, the reason I got into philosophy some years ago was because I noticed that free will didn't make much sense to me. I just started. It was kind of an insight that it grew on me, that people were really helpless in having the thoughts they had, right? And they
Yeah.
were really helpless in having the personality they had, and they ultimately, they didn't choose to have those thoughts, and they didn't choose to have those personalities, right? So if choice wasn't there, then I guess free will wasn't possible. And that opened the door for a lot of other questions, and that got me into philosophy. That was the catalyst that made me start to question everything, basically. So yeah, philosophy then became a lifestyle for me, I would say.
Yes, and it is a lifestyle that is constantly casting doubt on what you think, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So,
Definitely, because philosophy ultimately won't give you final answers, right?
yeah.
So you will never be satisfied with your philosophy if you I think if you are coherent, you will have to keep a door open for possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So now we will quickly look at the dictionary entries for philosophy. I
Yeah.
want to look at two sources, the Oxford Dictionary and Wikipedia.
Mm.
So first we have, in the Oxford Dictionary, we have the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and
Yeah.
existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline.
Mm.
And from Wikipedia, we have philosophy is the study of general and fundamental questions, such as those about existence, reason, knowledge, values, mind, and language. So here we have the fundamental nature of knowledge and fundamental questions, which may refer to roughly the same idea. Can we say
Yeah.
something about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I also agree with those definitions. I think they are precise. I think that's what philosophy does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that those definitions fundamentally mean different things. It's just that questions, in a way, I think are our curiosity put in spoken language, let's say.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that curiosity it's a
Yeah.
fundamental requirement for acquiring new knowledge. And I guess we seek knowledge also to feed our curiosities, which is the same thing to say we seek knowledge to feed our questions. So in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, yeah, philosophy is acquiring knowledge and is feeding questions in a sense.
Yeah. Okay. And so it sounds to me that people have some different ideas about the types of philosophy. Some may look at it as a way of living, others as a study, yet others as
Yeah.
something that you do. How can we make sense of that?
Yeah, because philosophy is all that. I think that um, philosophy can be both things. If you can do philosophy very academically, you can practice philosophy in your everyday life when you question things and you wonder how things
Mm-hmm.
work and what is there to cohere. And yeah, so I think that is, in a sense, why philosophy, the definition of philosophy, it's so debatable, and so many people have different answers, even philosophers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall we touched on what most people would agree philosophy is.
Okay, yes. Now, would you like to add a few more of your own insights concerning this? I think you have something interesting to say as philosophy as some sort of mind or brain gym.
Yeah, we were talking the other day, and you said something interesting. You said that philosophy, you have to approach philosophy with respect, right?
Yes.
And I think that is the case. I think that the same way that you go to the gym to work on your body, philosophy in a way it's kind of a gym for the mind. You are
Mm-hmm.
checking for your ideas, checking for your beliefs. You when you think about philosophy, I think in a way you are building a more coherent model of reality and a more coherent way to live your life. But in a sense also, and this is maybe kind of paradoxical,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason I think you said we should approach philosophy with respect is because philosophy also reveals how absurd reality can be. Because
Yes.
philosophy
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give you any answers, just asks for more questions, and so yeah, philosophy might trap you in some sort of nihilist mindset,
Mm-hmm.
in a relativist mindset, and I don't think that's helpful to help you live your life well. So in a sense, yeah, I think philosophy can be really helpful
Mm-hmm.
to put your ideas in check, but at the same time, I think people should be aware of the dark power of philosophy in a sense. Of course, I don't want to demotivate people. They should, I think they should make questions. They should be reasonable,
Yes.
but yeah, they probably also should be aware that philosophy has this power. For example, this insight I had that we don't have free will.
Yeah.
This is kind of scary for many people. And this is something
Yeah,
that
of
it's a
course.
conversation that we should approach carefully, because it seems to me, I think that the notion that we don't have free will, it's kind of useful for conversations about ethics, because it kind
Mm-hmm.
of be kind of gives you a framework for empathy in a sense, because you understand that people are really doing what they have to do, right? And they are not choosing. Of course, this is debatable, and we could have a conversation about this, but I can see its utility,
Yeah.
and I can see how it makes your ideas more coherent. But at the same time, it seems that it takes like purpose from people. It seems like this idea that they don't have free will takes purpose from them, and some people kind of
Mm-hmm.
get depressed with that idea. So I think it's a good example to show how philosophy should be respected.
Yes, and so also to be treated as something that requires some sort of preparation before you get into it too
Yeah,
deeply, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this. It was very insightful. I think we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
And I think the question is never exhausted, what is philosophy? But I
Yeah.
think with all of these contributions, yours included, we have come a lot farther to understanding this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And thank you. It was great to having you on the show. And I
Thanks, man.
hope
It was a
to,
pleasure.
yeah, I hope to have you again back soon.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so today we have looked at what is philosophy. What is philosophy to you? Write this in the comments below. And if you have any questions or something that you would like to have as an idea for an episode, please write those in the comments as well. So thank you for listening. I hope you found some inspiration, and we'll be glad to have you with us on the next episode of the Philosophy Podcast. I'm Everon, and I wish you a great day. And if you've enjoyed this episode, you might be interested in our free philosophy forum on Discord. We're a small community of passionists of philosophy who aim to bring philosophy to you and you to philosophy. You can check out the links in the description. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram under @freephilosophyforum. Okay. Yeah.